Hey, it's Tim.
And it's Amy from GoWithLess. We're so glad you're here with us today. In this week's video, we're going to share what on earth do you guys do all day as early retirees. I hope you'll stay tuned for the whole video.
Every Wednesday here on our channel, we come out with a new video, typically talking about our early retirement or our nomadic lifestyle. In 2015, we left our careers in our late 40s and retired early. And in January of 2020, we sold our home and became full-time nomads. If you are new to our channel, please be sure and subscribe and ring that little notification bell. Also, please be sure and give us a thumbs up.
Okay, as Tim just mentioned, we retired back in 2015. I was in April. Tim's 5-year anniversary is coming up at the end of this month. So that means that we've had 5 to 5.5 years of early retirement. We have a lot of experience, and so much experience that we're going to separate this video into 3 chapters because there's really 3 chunks of things that we're doing throughout. And so chapter 1 is all about time with our daughter, 4 years, the big chunk.
So our daughter, whenever we first retired, our daughter was with us 3 days out of the week. She was with her mom for half the week and with us for half the week. And so a lot of our life was simply dictated by doing the things that you do when you have a child at home, getting her to school and making sure she's doing her homework and getting her to events and just doing the things that you do with children. So a lot of our life was spent doing that. Also, a lot of our life was spent just doing the things that you normally do. Something we've realized through early retirement is that the things that you used to do on the weekends or the evenings, those tend to spread out in retirement. And so grocery shopping and things like that, they take up more time than they might have in the past just because you have more time to do them.
You think so?
I do.
I don't know. So we went to the grocery, maybe because, I'll give an example. We love to go grocery shopping. So instead of just going and hustling to the grocery store like once a week, we would go a lot. So maybe is that an example?
That would be a perfect example. So
okay.
I think it's not necessarily efficient to go to the grocery store
we love it.
4 separate times because there's a deal here and a deal here and a deal there. But because we have the time to do that, we might just do it just because we like to go and do a little grocery shopping.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so obviously we love to travel. We weren't able to get an enormous amount of travel into chapter 1 because our daughter was in high school. And not only was she in high school, but she was only with us for half of the week. So we could take maybe 3-day trips here and there. A couple times a year, we could take a 12-day trip, sometimes with her, sometimes just the 2 of us. So we weren't able to do a lot of long-term travel in this big chapter 1, and we needed to figure out some cool things to do that really stimulated us both while we were at home.
Yeah, we also found things to do that we like to do. So for instance, I started travel hacking in volume. So I started, Amy likes to say I was doing it like a part-time job. So maybe up to 20 hours a week, I'd be doing things associated with travel hacking, whether that's simply reading RSS feeds or going out and physically doing things, signing up for new credit cards. It took a lot of time to understand what's going on in this travel hacking game, just learning about what's happening. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I also like to say that I'm our CTO, our CIO, that'd be the Chief Information Officer or the Chief Technology Officer, and the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO.
That's a lot of hats.
Amy's our CEO, so she gets the top hat. There you go. But nonetheless, so doing all these things associated with moving our technology life forward and moving our financial life forward, these things take a lot of time, at least for me, whether it's paying taxes or paying the bills or investing our money. All of these things require research and making sure that I'm trying to do the right things, and so this takes a lot of time.
And fortunately, we have both taken on tasks naturally that we kind of enjoy, that we're good at, that we gravitate toward, and it's very complementary. So some of the things that I do, I'm pretty good at languages, and so whenever we're traveling around the world, I'm the one who speaks to people in different languages. Tim just is like a guy on the side.
See.
But I was taking Spanish lessons from a private tutor for about a year. Unfortunately, I let those go away, and because I didn't keep them up, I kind of forgot it. So hopefully when I'm immersed, I'm generally pretty quick to pick that up again. And when we spend a lot of time in Spanish-speaking countries, I'll resume those lessons. But I went back to undergraduate college for just a fun class. My major was something very serious. It was in economics. So I went back for a class about jazz. I was able to spend a lot more time cooking our own food from scratch instead of relying on more convenient things. So as a matter of fact, Tim also lost 30 to 40 pounds in his first year or two of retirement effortlessly because we spent more time eating more healthy food at home. And that took a lot of time of planning and cooking and prepping and cleaning and reading all those cookbooks that I love.
We also took on this thing. We signed up for fun jobs that were minimum wage jobs. So we found this thing that sounded like it was going to be a lot of fun, where we would go and be security guards / ushers at concert venues. So we worked at the Pepsi Center, we worked at Red Rocks, we worked at a variety of different places doing this because we wanted to be able to see concerts for free. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool to just stand around and be nice to people and watch a concert? It didn't turn out that it was quite like that, but in theory it sounded great. And why not make minimum wage and have a little extra income associated with this exercise? It didn't work like that.
Well, it turns out that we would have to stand in place, generally on concrete or asphalt, for like 8 hours. We might get a 15-minute break in a humongous sports stadium, have 15 minutes total to run to our locker, wolf down a sandwich in 5 minutes, and run back to our spot with a quick trip to the restroom. And that was like an 8-hour shift. We'd also get home at midnight, and if we were at a concert, maybe our ears were ringing because it was always very loud, and I'd be really wired. So I was on the stage with Pitbull, for example, and I would get home like just unable to go to sleep, and I was afraid that I was going to harm my hearing, and my sleep was all messed up. So after about 8 or so months, we stopped that when you needed back surgery.
Yep. So I ultimately had a discectomy, so I had a herniated disc, and I had to have that fixed. And so this was something else that took a large part of this 4-year chunk of our retirement. It seemed like it took a whole year sort of to work through this process. I'm sure it was much shorter than that, but
it felt long.
It felt like it took forever to understand that this was indeed what's going on, going to doctor after doctor after doctor to try and figure it out, and then signing up for the surgery. That also took a while, and working through all this process. If we had jobs, I don't know how we would have had time to deal with this, but also
we wouldn't have.
Once I actually had the surgery, it took me about a month of downtime to recover. So again, luckily we were early retired and able to work through that recovery process with the herniated disc and the surgery that I had.
And thank goodness I was early retired, because I was able to take Tim to all of these appointments, and his 1 month of recovery, I was very engaged, cooking for him, toweling him off out of the shower because he couldn't even bend over an inch, picking up all the stuff that he dropped on the floor 50 times a day. So he really needed like a full-time nurse, and that was me, and it was a good thing that I was able to do that for him. Now we took on another job maybe a year later. I used to go to the gym maybe 5 days a week, and there were 2 days that there was nothing going on at the gym that I liked to do. So I said, let's sign up for these jobs at the child care center. We like kids, and let's just do 2 easy 3-hour shifts a week. We'll get a free membership at our gym, and then while we're there, we'll just change and go work out right afterwards. Well, there were like 100 kids that were with each one of us, and they were sneezing in our face and wiping all over our face and things like that. So I got really sick. In our 6 weeks there, I got extremely sick twice. And in order to call in sick, you had to have a doctor's note. Now, I had retired from a serious job, and to kind of have to get a doctor's note for a minimum wage job, I mean, the doctor's visit alone would have cost me more than a week's of work, I would guess. Actually, significantly, it would cost me like a month of work, I would say. So it didn't really make any sense to keep that job when really what we were wanting with our early retirement was our freedom. That job limited it. So we decided no more jobs. But we did volunteering.
Yes, we found volunteering, and we love all of our volunteering gigs. All the ones we've had to date have been phenomenal. So first thing that we want to say about volunteering is that the way you're treated when you're volunteering is completely different than when you are working in a minimum wage capacity. So we volunteered for our theater center.
Better.
It's much better. We volunteered for the Denver Film Society and the Denver Film Festival. We volunteered for the Great American Beer Festival. We also volunteered with homeless shelters. We actually have given food to homeless people. We volunteered in a variety of different ways, and all of these things just seem to be a better fit for us versus trying to fill our time with these minimum wage things that just did not work out.
That's right. And then also, I spend a lot of time trip planning. So this is something pre-1995, before the internet went completely crazy and opened things up. In order to plan any kind of trips, you had to go to a travel agency. So I didn't have any time off in my early jobs in my early 20s, but I would still go to travel agencies and pick out like brochures/magazines of Caribbean resorts or Mexican resorts, maybe European bike tours and cruises and things like that. I wasn't even able to go on any of these trips, but I love the idea of this trip planning so much that I used to like dream about it and look through these magazines, brochures for a long time way back when. So this is something that I'm already passionate about. And what I would do really for the first 4 years is I would understand, where are we going to go? Where's a fun place to go that we could do cool stuff? What are we going to do when we get there? So an enormous amount of trip planning and kind of like location scouting, I guess.
Every opportunity we had, we were also on the road. So even though we had limited windows where we could be gone for 12 days with or without our daughter, we would be on the road. So we would hit the road and go and do the things that Amy had planned for us to do. So we still had these travel things, and we knew we wanted to travel in the long term more fully, but certainly we were on the road as much as we could be during that first 4 years.
And I'm thinking as soon as we started this chapter, we renovated our townhome. So we moved into our rental townhome. It was kind of vanilla. We made it look really beautiful into a space that we loved. You've seen it in the past with us in front of our orange wall. So we had it painted nicely, new windows, new flooring, new carpeting, it was just a nice little place. And then we also got our blog kicked off.
Yep. So I was very interested primarily because I wanted to understand how the technology worked, how a blog worked. And so a lot of the big bloggers who had turned us on to this idea of FIRE talked about maybe having some passive income from a blog. So then, okay, well, this is passive income. I'm going to go sign up for this and figure out how it worked. Well, the thing that we realized early on is that this was not going to be passive income for us because writing was such a chore. The technology was kind of fun, so I got to learn something new, and so that was interesting, but the actual chore of writing and producing content, we just weren't designed to do that.
No, it's definitely not our passion. So we started our blog, it launched to the day, my 2-year anniversary of being FIRE. We kept that up for about a year or so, and then we made the jump over to YouTube. And since, actually, I guess 3 years into our retirement, we started on YouTube, and we've been kind of gangbusters ever since. So we haven't ever done less than 1 video a week. Sometimes toward the beginning, we did a video every single day for over 2 months, which anyone who creates videos knows that is complete insanity. So, okay, so let's see what else we have. I think that's kind of it for chapter 1. Chapter 2, we're going to turn the page with our notes here. Chapter 2 is a quick chapter. That was after our daughter had graduated from high school. She flew the nest. She's very independent-minded, which is just great, and she moved more than 2 hours away, and we focused on getting out of our home and downsizing for the second time in 5 years.
Yeah, so this downsizing exercise took up a crazy amount of time. So when we moved out of our big house back in 2014 and moved into our townhome, we got rid of a lot of stuff when we went through that exercise. And so the things that were left in our life in our smallish townhome were things that we loved. And so filtering through this stuff and trying to decide what we were going to keep and ultimately have in a 5x10 storage space was a difficult process. And so we spent months, I'm going to say about 8 months, is that right?
About, yes, 6 to 8 months.
Sorting through our stuff and figuring out what our new life was going to look like without stuff.
And in that 6 to 8 months, we also put our home on the market. We also got our life kind of moving toward becoming Texans. We also did maybe 10 weeks of travel, including 5 weeks in Europe. Yep. So there was a lot happening in this little window. And then that brings us to our current chapter, which is chapter 3. And that is what I like to call the nomadic life. And that's what you're seeing right now. So our nomadic life, there are some things that take a lot of cycles. For me, I'd say that there's 2 to 3 things that take the majority of my time now. Number 1, and this cannot be overestimated, is how much time it takes me. I'm the one who plans where are we going next, and then where are we going to live. And I spent about 100 hours figuring out maybe a place to live in Palm Springs. I could never find a price point that worked for us, so I worked and I worked and I worked, and I never found anything. So all that 100 hours really just gave me Palm Springs as a really expensive place and probably isn't going to work for us. And that was 100 hours. So I'm spending so much time planning our house sits, planning where we're going to go, what is the weather like. And I love it, but I do spend a lot of time with that.
There's also logistics just associated with moving from place to place. So where are we going to get gas along the way? Are we driving? Are we flying? Mostly driving this year, no flying. But also, where are we going to stay along the road in hotels? And are we going to use points and miles? Are we going to stay in an Airbnb? So there's lots of just things to do with moving around that take a lot of time. Also, we've talked about this before, but when we show up in a new place, we say it takes about a week or two just to get comfortable with the place. Where's the grocery store? How do I get from here to there without the GPS? So there's just this getting comfortable period that takes a few weeks, and so that also takes up a good chunk of our time.
Now, building a community is another, probably one of my top 3 things that I do, and that is our community of travelers, of fire friends, of house sitting friends, of travel hacking friends. So I spend, and just my normal friends and family from my whole past life. So, and our viewers, how on earth could I not say our viewers? So our community and having a social life is, I think that the thing I was the most nervous about for our future, like our current life, or the things I had been concerned about, is really missing that sense of community that I used to have back home. Well, we have found it, but it comes at a lot of work, and it turns out that it's absolutely worth it, because I really need that community. But not only the planning and keeping in touch and things like that, developing relationships, but then meeting people in person. We've met a lot of viewers this year.
We've met a ton of viewers, and it's all great. And so whenever we do meet viewers or just friends that we know from the past, we typically spend a lot of time with them. So we're going to be hours with people whenever we meet them. So just being with people takes a lot of time for us. And so that's also something that takes a lot of time. Also, there's just continuing to live our normal life, the CEO role, the CIO, the CFO, the CTO roles that I play.
The house sitter roles.
All of these things take time. And so once we show up, if we are on a house sit, there's also living the life of the homeowner. So taking care of their pets and mowing their yard and taking care of their pool and doing the things in the house, cleaning, that you would do if you were the homeowner. Those also take up a good chunk of our time in our new nomadic life.
And there are some things that we have brought over from chapter 1. So Tim is still very engaged with travel hacking. I'm still very engaged with planning our food and cooking. But certainly a huge one is our YouTube channel. So our very easy basic videos. This is probably like the 10th time we've done this basic video. And sometimes it takes us over and over and over again to kind of get to a rhythm where we feel okay putting it out. And we could really work on that for weeks and weeks and weeks on one video if we really wanted to make it okay. So we're doing the very best that we can, but sometimes we're like, okay, we've done that 50 times. Did we already say this, or was this in the last take, or the take before, the take before? But our YouTube channel continues to be a lot of effort, and thankfully we have our friends with our viewers to make that worth it.
Yeah, it's certainly not just easy. Somebody had once said something to the effect of, you can just create videos like Tim and Amy do. That takes them no time.
Like 10 minutes, because it's a 10-minute video.
And so that is not the way this works, unfortunately. We wish that were the case.
I'm going to estimate that we have met at least 100 people who have already retired early. Not just people on their path, but people who have actually retired early. And there's something that we have said and that we have heard said from dozens and dozens of people who've retired early, and that is, how on earth did I ever have time for a job? And we have asked this so many times because we are busier than we could have ever imagined. We have not had a boring day.
I do not understand that in any way, shape, or form. We didn't have time for jobs. Luckily we did. I guess that's what allowed us to retire, but it's just kind of crazy. Something else that we also consistently hear, and this is either just in conversations with people who are on their path or people who are considering whether or not they want to do this, is, am I going to be bored when I'm retired? And consistently we're like, no, that's not possible.
At least for us.
At least for us. And so we've heard this saying that goes something to the effect of, only boring people get bored. And so maybe there's something to this saying, but I think for most people, you're going to find plenty to do if you manage to get yourself retired or financially independent.
And while what we've laid out might seem atrocious to you, maybe this sounds like an awful way to live your life, great. It works beautifully for us. We love doing what we've taken on. And the cool thing is that in early retirement, you can hopefully design the life that you want. Maybe it has completely different hobbies and activities. Fantastic. You then have the freedom to choose what it is that you want to design in your life. Now, Tim and I, we don't really like getting going really early in the morning. So what we found is that afternoon is our super busy time. So we're up early, but we're kind of puttering around the house for the first several hours of the day, get all showered slowly, have lunch, and then off
Email.
we go. Yeah, so off we go. We tend to have a busy few hours out in the afternoon. Maybe we'll do a tourist activity if we're in a place that accommodates just a few hours. And then we're coming back for often making dinner at home and having kind of a quiet night at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
So our life is amazing, and it's the life that we want to be living. And so that's the beauty of fire, is that you can do what it is that you want to do once you get to this point. So are we bored?
I would say no, not even a minute. I'm looking for a little boredom, and maybe next year I'm actually looking at our planning and maybe spreading things out a little bit so that we have a little more some more pockets for a little more downtime, because we're still too busy. We're staying in a place for 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and it's still a little too hustly. So I think I'd like a little more downtime. Now, what I'd like to know from our audience, if you have already retired, do you agree that how did I ever have time for a job? I would love to hear your answer to that. If you are working toward retiring early, I want to know what you're looking forward to on the other side of retiring. And if you're someone who is looking to reach financial independence but not planning to retire early, I'm curious, what about your job has you so passionate about it? Maybe, I don't know. Well, I want to know what you have to say down below. So look forward to hearing from you. Anything else, babe?
Nope, that's it.
We'll see you next Wednesday.
Adios.